Hi there, I'm Tom Harrington. Welcome once again to the Sports Journal. The military, especially during wartime, makes no secret about keeping secrets. Operations overseas, domestic strategies, there's much they tell us. There's much more they don't. That kind of secrecy also happens in sports. Hiding injuries, for example, is common practice among professional teams. But there's another veil of secrecy within the teams themselves. It's used by the players who hide their pain from teammates, coaches, and management. There's an unwritten code among athletes based on macho toughness and job insecurity, and it can have unhealthy results. Here's Bob Babinski with that story.
Buffalo spun in wide of the goal.
The worst thing you can be as a hockey player is soft.
Whatever I needed to do, I was going to do as long as I could play those games.
Emotionally, you want to always be proving yourself to your teammates to say, I'm a tough guy and, I can handle a little bit of a pain, pain here and there.
Get in stance. Down. 257. Hot one. Hey, two. Hey.
Grant Carter still loves playing football, but his Atlanta home is a long way from the playing fields of the CFL. Carter was a star for 7 seasons.
Throw it to daddy. Throw it. Right.
Now that he's retired from the game, he feels he can talk openly about the extent of the injuries he suffered on the field.
First down, Alouettes at about the 20.
This one at McGill Stadium in October 2000. He was middle linebacker for the Edmonton Eskimos.
Grant Carter, who made first contact.
You gotta love that. You just gotta love that.
And I think it was kind of late second quarter. I was pretty geared up for the play, and it developed just as I had thought.
Right in the side of the head. He tries to
Carter made the tackle, but took a serious blow to the head.
I remember trying to get up, and as soon as I got up, all of a sudden the lights just went out.
When he finally got up, he couldn't hide what happened, but he did hide how bad he was feeling.
This guy is a tough guy. He's a warrior.
He convinced the team doctor to let him get back in the game after sitting out just 3 plays.
I was trying to look wide-eyed and smile at him and kind of laugh at the play and pretend that I knew exactly what had happened and that it was no big deal. But the reality of it was I was, my jaw was hurting and I wasn't seeing as clearly as I do normally. So, I was certainly doing my bit to try to conceal the reality of it as much as I could.
He was able to stay in the game despite already having suffered a severe concussion in his career. This blow was so serious, Carter could not remember many details of the game afterward. But he says playing through something like that is not unusual.
Part of it, I think, is just kind of the heat of the moment. Being in the middle of a game or a war, as we kind of call it, where you feel in your mind or in your heart, if I can still walk or run or do whatever I got to do, I can still play.
Did you get poked in there, sir? Something about that.
Dr. Scott Delaney has been one of the Montreal Alouettes team doctors since 1997.
No, it was definitely something.
He's completed 2 concussion-related studies for the Clinical Journal of Sports Medicine, one of the leading journals of its kind in North America. He's not surprised by Carter's story.
Many times a player will try and hide it and he'll be suffering symptoms and he doesn't realize that during that time when he's not telling us what he's feeling, if he gets another hit in the head or what have you, he's going to have worse symptoms that are going to keep him out longer.
Delaney is now completing a prospective study trying to document how athletes conceal injuries. His work to date shows CFL players are afraid to report previous concussions. When more than 300 of them from across the league were asked to give their names in a 1997 survey, many simply lied about their past.
Anybody who was a rookie, anybody who was new to the team, anybody who felt at all that really their situation was tenuous, tended just to check off no, 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 whether it be high school, college, or pro. And the only people who admitted to injuries were the veterans who had been there for several years and felt secure that, well, if I tell them that I had a knee injury or a concussion in college, it's not going to make any difference.
Check. Jovanovski follows up.
Football isn't the only sport where players hide injuries from the rest of the team. In hockey, you see it most frequently with fringe players, especially the fighters.
Were you ever suspended?
Nick Kyprios was an enforcer for 4 different NHL teams. He remembers a fight where he lost the vision in his left eye.
I went to the penalty box. I didn't tell a soul. I was just hoping that it would clear up. And actually within about 10 minutes, I started getting some light back in the eye. But the rest of the night, it felt like someone pulled a shade over my eye. And I probably saw maybe 30% of the light I was supposed to see. And after the game was the first time I actually told the trainer, had a doctor come in and take a look at my eye.
Boxers can't box for 6 weeks after you're knocked out, but hockey players, it's usually 2 or 3 days.
Gabriel's paid the price for playing the way he did. He says he's not even sure how many concussions he suffered during his career. He retired after getting knocked out in this fight in 1997. This concussion was so serious, he couldn't continue playing.
80% of the league, I think, is in a situation where you get nervous for your job. Getting hurt means someone replacing you.
Rudy Doliscat also knows something about hiding injuries. He played 10 seasons as a professional soccer player, most of them with the Montreal Impact of the A-League. In the spring of 1994, he was asked to join the national team for a series of 5 exhibitions. He scored in this game against Morocco. Doliscat remembers having a quadricep injury and not letting the coaches know how serious it was.
They weren't aware to what extent I was hurt, and I wasn't going to let them know. Simply put, because I think they had a whole bunch of other people they could have put in the team. I think if I was Alex Bunbury, John Catliff, one of the guys who were mainstays with the national team, I probably could have said, Coach, I'm out for a little while, and I might miss the first game, I might miss the second game, and then I'll come back in. I don't think I was in that situation.
Doliscat eventually tore his quadricep muscle during that exhibition series and missed nearly 3 months of the professional season.
The athlete hiding an injury to stay in the game is often just trying to save his job. But in most sports, the idea of being tough is also important. The idea is fostered at a very young age.
I wouldn't describe it so much as a pressure as much as I would an ethic.
Tim Fleiser is a defensive lineman with the Montreal Alouettes.
When I used to play with my father when I was a little kid, we're talking 3, 4, 5 years old, and I used to fall and I used to get hurt and I used to start to cry. He would say, you know, you have 2 choices, and it wasn't a threat or anything. It was just, he said, you have 2 choices. You know, you can cry or you can get up and keep playing. And he said football players get up and keep playing.
Mike Soles says football players learn to cope with pain long before they get paid to play. He was a running back for 11 seasons with the Eskimos and the Alouettes. Before that, he remembers a university game where he stayed in after being knocked unconscious. Today, he wonders if during his football days he played through too much.
Every once in a while, I guess you'll have a memory lapse or something, but you don't know if those are natural or, you know, it happens to everybody, or if you just say, how come I didn't remember that? So part of, in the back of your mind, you start thinking, well, I hope it's not the same thing as, you know, the knees that's starting to bother me a little bit. So hopefully the rest will stay pretty sharp for a long time to come.
Here we go.
Grant Carter looks forward to years of play with his children.
Good shot.
But he also lives with some uncertainty, especially when he thinks about how bad his concussions were.
I guess a fear would be that I'm going to have some kind of, you know, down the road effects from that, whether it be memory loss or, you know, headaches or whatever it may be. Now, I've been fortunate so far that nothing has happened, and I'll just, you know, continue to hope that.
Come on, you just made one catch.
Dr. Delaney would prefer to see Grant Carter and Mike Soles living with less uncertainty. He's working with the CFL Players Union to get the message out about hiding injuries, that the risks are serious, both short and long term, especially with concussions.
But you don't want a player to come back who still has bad headaches and is not able to concentrate. If he comes back at that point, now you're talking about a life-threatening illness. And yet you're also trying to balance it. If this is his 4th concussion, his 5th concussion, you've got to convince the player that this is a quality of life issue for him. At some point, he wants to be able to sit down and read the newspaper and be able to concentrate. And those are the time when the player has to take some of the responsibility on himself.
Dr. Delaney certainly has noble ambitions. From a doctor's perspective, they make a lot of sense. Whether it's realistic to expect professional athletes to change their behavior is another question. The traditions in sport run deep.
We play hurt because sometimes it's expected of us, and it's been instilled in us since we were 7 years old that that's a good thing. You know, it's a courageous thing to do in this game, is to sometimes play hurt, even if it is detrimental long term.
Here's Troy Davis, head down!
The fear of losing your job, the fear of being labeled untough or a wimp or whatever is always going to be there by the peers and by teammates. And as long as there's football, there's going to be guys that are going to be willing to do anything and play with any type of pain or injury in order to stay on that team.